Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast, as part of a Proxyl interlude, Proxyl sort of intermission. This audio podcast, as part of a Cataclysm Chiasma, and this audio podcast, as part of a Storm Robotics production. In this interlude, of sort of the main point before going into sort of the into a sort of a subsequent series, audio podcast series. So this audio podcast will this audio podcast or this interlude a little bit around the main points from the previous audio the previous audio podcast, or the audio podcast as part of this series, and the audio podcast as part of the series. So the sort of main points, the main points are that there in the peer reviewed and published works from 2012, there are there are several coping there are several theories and sort of models around coping works that go from 1920 from 19 around 1929 up to sort of up to at least around 1997 1997, and then works sort of from the late 90s, up to sort of more recently, where theories and models theories coping theories, coping theories, or stress theories, and sort of models have 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 been peer reviewed and published in sort of around other sort of in around specific diseases, and conditions. But to iterate again, sort of as part of this interlude, there's Walter Cannon's fight or flight works from 1929, which was being considered as a physiological theory and model. And there's references or citations from going back as far as 1924, by works by Cannon and Querido, from 1924, and Cannon in 1982. There's Hans Selye's general adaptation syndrome, where the theory or model, the coping and stress or theory model is had a physiological basis, and where the references or the works around this are from Selye in 1937, Selye in 1951, Selye in 19 where Selye published two papers, or two lots of work, two peer reviewed works in 1951, Selye and Horava in 1953, and Selye in 1975. In works by Moose and Solomon, the emotion, stress, and central nervous system, or CNS, and immunity from and immunity from 1964 to 1969. The coping and stress model, the coping and stress coping and stress theory and model basis had a physiological underpinning, and in around the references of works, peer reviewed works. Solomon and Moss had works had works in 1964, Solomon in 1969, and Solomon and Amkraut in 1984. In works by Lazarus and the Harm, Threat, and Challenge, from 1966. This theory, this the coping and stress theory and model had been a had a sort of a psychological basis, and sort of reference works by reference works go back from 1974. Lazarus in 1974. Lazarus in 1985, and Lazarus in 1992, and Lazarus in 1993. And George Engel's biopsychosocial model in 1977. There had been peer-reviewed and published works in around the coping and stress theory and model, having a psychological and physiological basis, where the peer-reviewed and published works from Engel go from 1980 and 1997. And Folkman's positive emotions works, positive emotions from 1980, 1985, and 1997. The theory and the model, the coping and stress and sort of theory and model have had a psychological basis, a psychological a psychological basis, and so the sort of peer reviewed and published work by Folkman go from 1986, 1988. Folkman and Lazarus. Folkman and Lazarus in 1988, and Folkman in 1997, Folkman and Moskowitz in 2000, Folkman and Moskowitz in 2004, Folkman and Moskowitz, a second paper in 2000, a second paper in by Folkman and Moskowitz in 2004, and Folkman in 2008. In around the psychoneuroimmunology concept, or the PNI concept, the coping and stress sort of theory and model sort of have a psychological have a in around the PNI concept have a psychological and physiological basis. And there's works going from Baker from 1987, Adder and team sort of in 1990, Adder and Cohen in 1993, Adder and team in 1995, Sternberg in 1997, Adder in 1998, Sternberg in 2000, and Sternberg in 2001. And in around the diathesis stress model, around coping and stress, and the theory and the models, and the model around the diathesis stress model, which generally have a psychological and physiological basis, as published works retrospectively from Burke in 1991, and Turk in 2002. And so the main points around as part of this sort of interlude. Coping can be intricate, but it is implemented using basic strategies. Coping viscotides and coping viscotides sort of is has sort of a unity with varying challenges. Coping has also been defined as sort of the behavioral efforts and individuals use to manage and alter sort of stress life situations. Coping calls for a sort of deeper and more intricate understanding, and it should not be restricted to the psychology of a being, and to understand coping meant sort of well-being and coping in entirety. The model, the theories and the models require further understanding and scrutinizing. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast is part of a Proxyl interlude, a Proxyl intermission. This audio podcast is part of a Cataclysm Chiasma, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Lobostics production.